Sophie, a timid 12-year-old girl, attends her grandmother's funeral on a cold December day. While cleaning her grandmother's attic, Sophie's mother hands her an antique nutcracker with intricate carvings. Sophie is drawn to the odd charm of the nutcracker, feeling an inexplicable connection. That night, Sophie dreams of her grandmother whispering, "Protect the nutcracker, and it will protect you." Sophie places the nutcracker on her shelf, but strange things happen during the night. She hears faint clattering and the sound of wood creaking. The next morning, Sophie finds the nutcracker lying on her desk, holding a splintered wooden sword. A chill runs down her spine as she notices faint scratches on the floor. That evening, Sophie feels an eerie presence in her room. Her shadow seems to stretch unnaturally, and faint whispers echo in the corners. She clutches the nutcracker for comfort, only to feel its carved wooden hand warm slightly in her grip. The whispers suddenly stop. The nutcracker comes to life, startling Sophie. It bows stiffly and says, "I exist to protect you, but my aid comes at a cost." Sophie is both terrified and intrigued but has little time to process as the shadows in her room move toward her. The nutcracker springs into action, wielding its small wooden sword against an advancing shadowy figure. Sophie watches in horror as the creature shrieks and retreats, leaving behind a trail of black soot. Exhausted, the nutcracker collapses, and Sophie realizes her life will never be the same. The next morning, Sophie finds scorch marks on her bedroom floor and soot-streaked curtains. The nutcracker, now lifeless, lies on its side, its wooden sword cracked. When Sophie tries to explain what happened to her parents, they dismiss her story as a bad dream. Determined to understand, Sophie searches the attic for clues. She discovers an old journal belonging to her grandmother. In it, her grandmother wrote about the nutcracker's role as a protector, warning that its service is never free. As Sophie reads further into the journal, she learns that the nutcracker demands a part of its owner's memories after every battle. The stronger the evil it fights, the more memories it takes. Sophie notices faint gaps in her recollection of last night and begins to fear the nutcracker's power. Despite this, she feels an odd sense of safety knowing it protected her. That night, she hides the nutcracker in her wardrobe, but the uneasy presence in the house remains. When Sophie hears whispering voices outside her bedroom, she cautiously peeks into the hallway and sees shadowy shapes coiling up the staircase. She retrieves the nutcracker from the wardrobe, clutching it tightly. It comes to life once more, springing from her hands to face the encroaching darkness. The battle that ensues is fiercer than the last, and Sophie watches helplessly as the nutcracker defeats the shadows but collapses with cracks running along its wooden body. After the latest attack, Sophie begins to explore her grandmother's house, searching for answers. In the basement, she discovers a hidden passage sealed with an ancient symbol. The nutcracker, though weakened, points to the door. Sophie hesitates, unsure of what lies beyond, but the whispers in the house are growing louder and more insistent. Sophie finally opens the passage to reveal an underground chamber filled with relics, old charms, letters, and an ancient nutcracker identical to hers but broken in two. Among the items is a note from her grandmother: "The evil grows stronger every generation. Do not trust the nutcracker blindly." Sophie realizes that the evil in the house is not just random but tied to her family's past. Sophie confronts the nutcracker, demanding answers. The toy admits it was created to protect its owners from a dark curse placed on their bloodline, but that its power has limits. "The darkness will grow stronger the closer we get to the source," it warns. Sophie reluctantly decides to trust it, knowing she cannot face the evil alone. The next battle with the shadows is the fiercest yet. Sophie struggles to assist the nutcracker by shining light on the creatures, but the effort leaves her drained. Afterward, she notices she cannot recall the name of her best friend. Panicked, Sophie consults her grandmother's journal, which confirms the memory loss is permanent. The nutcracker, now heavily cracked, apologizes but says, "Without me, you will lose more than memories." One evening, Sophie's parents leave her home alone. She hears a knock at the door and finds an unfamiliar woman who claims to know her grandmother. The woman warns Sophie that the shadows will soon overtake the house unless she destroys the nutcracker. Sophie is torn between trusting the stranger or her wooden guardian. The shadows begin to whisper directly to Sophie, promising to restore her lost memories if she hands over the Nutcracker. Desperate, she considers their offer but notices the Nutcracker trembling slightly, as if pleading with her. Sophie realizes that giving in would mean losing herself entirely. As Christmas approaches, Sophie notices more gaps in her memories. She struggles to remember her favorite holiday traditions and even her grandmother's face. Her mother grows concerned as Sophie becomes increasingly withdrawn. Sophie resolves to end the curse once and for all, no matter the cost. The Nutcracker's condition worsens with each battle, its once shiny paint peeling away to reveal dull, splintered wood. Sophie realizes she must find a way to repair it before it is destroyed completely. She remembers a strange workshop mentioned in her grandmother's journal and sets out to find it. Sophie finds the workshop deep in the forest, run by an eccentric toymaker who seems to know everything about the Nutcracker. The toymaker agrees to repair it but warns Sophie that doing so will strengthen its bond to her, making her fate inseparable from its own. With the Nutcracker restored, Sophie experiences a brief respite. The house feels lighter, and the whispers fade. She allows herself a moment of hope but knows the final battle is looming. The Nutcracker advises her to prepare herself for the truth hidden in the sealed chamber. Sophie gathers her courage and descends once more into the hidden passage beneath the house. The Nutcracker guides her to the sealed chamber. When the door opens, Sophie finds an ancient mirror surrounded by symbols carved into the walls. The Nutcracker explains that the mirror contains the original source of the curse, a malevolent spirit bound by Sophie's ancestors. The spirit feeds on memories, growing stronger with every generation. Sophie realizes that destroying the mirror may end the curse but wonders what it might cost. The spirit in the mirror speaks to Sophie, offering her a deal. It promises to restore every lost memory and leave her family alone if she frees it. The Nutcracker vehemently opposes this, warning Sophie that the spirit will wreak havoc if released. Sophie feels torn, the lure of regaining her memories battling her growing trust in her protector. Ultimately, she refuses the spirit's offer, and its rage fills the chamber, shaking the walls and extinguishing the candles. As Sophie retreats to her room, the shadows launch their fiercest attack yet. Dozens of dark forms seep from every corner, surrounding her and the Nutcracker. Sophie fights alongside her protector, wielding a flashlight to weaken the creatures. Despite their efforts, the Nutcracker begins to splinter under the relentless assault. "You must destroy the mirror," it cries. Sophie realizes this is her only chance to end the curse. Armed with a hammer and the Nutcracker by her side, Sophie races back to the chamber. The spirit grows more powerful, sending waves of shadows to block her path. Sophie fights through them, the Nutcracker sacrificing itself to hold back the darkness. When Sophie reaches the mirror, she hesitates, hearing the spirit plead with her to stop. It promises to restore her grandmother if she spares it. With tears streaming down her face, Sophie ignores the spirit's pleas and swings the hammer into the mirror. The glass shatters, releasing a deafening scream as the spirit dissipates into nothingness. The shadows vanish, and the house falls silent. Sophie collapses, clutching the broken Nutcracker, unsure if the curse is truly over. When Sophie awakens, she finds herself surrounded by fragments of shattered memories. She recalls flashes of her grandmother's life but feels empty, as though part of her is missing. The Nutcracker lies in pieces on the floor, its purpose fulfilled. Sophie buries it in the garden, whispering a heartfelt thank you for its protection. She knows she has paid a great price but feels a sense of relief knowing her family is safe. As Christmas morning dawns, Sophie and her parents celebrate quietly. The house feels brighter, free of the oppressive darkness that once lingered. Sophie places the shattered remains of the Nutcracker sword on the mantle as a tribute to her protector. Though the memories she lost can never be restored, Sophie feels a new strength within herself. Her grandmother's warning echoes in her mind, but Sophie knows she has broken the cycle. For the first time in years, the house is at peace, and Sophie looks to the future with hope.